What is up, God Gamers? We got some patch notes for 13.14b, and I'm using the Twitter version of the patch notes because I'd like to go through Kent's thread. He has a thread here explaining some of the stuff, and I'd just like to talk a little bit more about the patch than what would be on the official patch notes. And before we actually get into the notes themselves, I just want to say I am going to be a little bit critical of the devs here, but anytime I want to throw my flowers to the devs as well, because it is not lost on me that we have the best devs in all of gaming, and such a quick response to an obvious meta botch, a 1 day, 24-hour turnaround is something that's just insane and awesome. And you know, see any other game having this close of a connection with their devs. So I always want to say that, and that TFT is a very hard game to balance a lot of stuff. All right, now on to, I'm gonna do some criticism in this video. Because yeah, we all want the game to be better, and sometimes criticism is warranted for that. Okay, so we have 13.14b patch notes. Here are the changes, and I'm just going to read the changes, then we'll go through Kent's reasoning on here. And I think these changes are really good. So Akshan's mana is getting nerfed down here, so he will cast a little bit later into the fight, and then his AD ratio is going down a little bit. Akshan's been very strong on this patch after they fixed his interaction where he canceled his ultimate if he was CC'd, as well as they fixed his Deadeye bug. So now he is proccing Deadeye more reliably. He wasn't proccing Deadeye with Runehounds. And so now when he procs Deadeye, he generates mana off that attack. And so he was casting more frequently, and his cast would never get canceled. And they gave him a compensation buff for no reason. So good catch here. They're taking him back down a little bit. I think Akshan is still going to be solid, but Aphelios should be the best Deadeye now instead of the 3-cost Deadeye. Karma is getting a slight nerf here. Again, obviously they overbuffed all the Invoker lines. I'm not sure if Karma herself needs the nerf, but Soraka and Taric definitely need the nerf. So they buffed Soraka for literally no reason at all. And so they kept the damage buff, and so they're nerfing the healing because they are going to keep Taric in a pretty strong state. He is still going to be pretty strong, but comboed with Soraka is really what makes Taric super strong. So they are nerfing Taric down a little bit. And then so I think this is actually a good place to hit Soraka since they buffed her damage on the 13.14a patch. So this makes a lot of change to me in that context. Now, I don't think she needed a buff in the first place, but this change makes sense in conjunction with her damage buff that she got. Makes a lot of sense to me. I'm a big fan of this change. And then Taric right here will cast slightly later into the fight and should cast less often. I think this is a great place to hit Taric. Shield duration goes down. I don't think this really matters a lot, but I think this is a great place to hit Taric. I think this is awesome. Think Fast has been disabled. If you're wondering why Think Fast has been disabled, Kent's going to get into it a little bit, but you know, maybe in lower elo you guys don't feel this, but in higher elos, especially in patches that are imbalanced, like Zed patch, last patch. I mean, there was a lot of things you could play on last patch, but especially on reroll patches, when Think Fast is in the game, like you could have the most insane spot to play like Zed or something like that, and then some dickhead gets Think Fast and he just hits all the Zeds and contests you and from a bad spot, and then like, all right, awesome, I just got outplayed, I guess. So that's why that's getting removed. It was a cool idea when it was added to the game because it's a way to express one of the few mechanics in TFT, your ability to roll down quickly. But it just hasn't translated into a good. It just doesn't. It's not a good quality of life for the game. So glad it's removed. But I'd like to see something back in the future that allows you to flex that mechanic, but in a way that isn't kind of toxic whenever the meta's imbalanced, and the meta's imbalanced quite often. Caretaker's allies going down from tier 3 to tier 2 unit. So it'll give you tier 2 units. And then a bug fix now correctly grants its units directly rather than giving orbs. So I've seen some people a little bit confused why this is, and that's because you're bad. No, I'm kidding. but no. So the reason why this has changed is because you can do something that's really, really imbalanced, where you just leave the orbs on your board. And then if you leave the orbs on your board, it doesn't actually take those units out of the pool. So for example, if you're playing Darius and you level to 7 and you have a Darius 2 already on your board, you could have 3 Dariuses sitting on the orb, and all you have to do is find 3 more. And then once you find the 3 more, you just walk on the orbs and it makes a Darius 3. And so yeah, the reason why you'd want to do that is because those Dariuses that are in those orbs are not thinning the pool yet. So it's like really OP. So anyway, so that is no longer a thing. And going down from 3 to tier 2, guys, honestly, unless you really like playing a lot of 2-cost rerolls, you probably don't play Bard anymore. One of the reasons why the tier 3 was so valuable is because you could actually level to 8 and you can still hit tier 3 units. And so like when you're close, you can just push levels and then roll, and it wasn't a big deal. You're gonna hit. But with tier 2 units, it's a lot harder to push. But If you guys do want to take this still, I think it can be fine for tempo, and especially if you like to play a lot of 2-cost reroll builds, it can be fine in that circumstance. But the reason why Bard was strong was just because of the silver tier augment. His golden prismatic is whatever. It's really not that great. It's fine. So I wasn't playing Bard already. I already thought he was a little overrated. This augment was broken, but I probably wouldn't play Bard anymore. And as far as balance changes here, I think if you have a good spot for Akshan, you still play Akshan. And Akshan's still going to be a great unit if you're playing a 4 Deadeye build. Still going to be a great place to put some items. And I think the Invoker build is probably still fine. This Taric is still going to be a powerhouse of a tank. Soraka was already a super good unit. She didn't need a buff, and so like this is kind of like a revert basically. It's just moving her power into a different spot. And then Karma is, I don't know if Karma needed this nerf, honestly. I think you can still play this build. I think it's still going to be fine. It was giga broken on this patch. So, and then bug fixes on frequent flyer is fixed. So, you know, if you knew about that bug, it's fixed now. And so let's go through Kent's stuff here where he's going to be talking about some stuff. With the bug fixes to Akshan, now he generates more mana, like we already talked about. We pretty much already covered this. Soraka was secret or not so secret? Not so secretly. Dude, this is one thing that really bugs me about the devs. And especially when I was hearing Mort Dog's, I listened to Mort Dog's Q&A, I listened to it live, and something that was really frustrating whenever Mort Dog was talking about this, whenever he said, we buffed Jeweled Gauntlet by 4 AP. And the patch before that, ask any challenger player, and they would have told you Jeweled Gauntlet was a terrible item. And then we buffed it by 4 AP, and now it's an S tier item that you insta-slam every game. And it's like, man... It's because you nerfed Zeri you put Zeri into the grave and you made Aphelios extremely hard to play. So obviously we're gonna play AP comps. Like you could have nerfed Jeweled Gauntlet and it still would have been one of the best items in the game. It didn't. Like it wasn't the 4 AP buff that made people play it. It was that you made the AD comps unplayable. You made Zeri literally unclickable unless you have the most giga Piltover opener. And then Aphelios was so hard to play. Because he just couldn't match up with the AP comps. He just really couldn't match up with the AP comps, and his comps are really expensive. So it was never worth going for, which made Jeweled Gauntlet a super good item. Like, it's so frustrating to me when the devs don't, like, sometimes, like, I think they are aware of this, but, like, sometimes they get so out of touch on, like, when you nerf other things, it makes the other things powerful, and that, like, when you look at data about Soraka was secretly or not so secretly OP, like, when you look at like Soraka's play rate or a top 4 rate, it might seem pretty low on the previous patch. Yeah, because the builds in which Soraka works in are mostly Invokers and Aphelios comp. That's the unit, that's the comps where she really shines whenever she's buffing the Taric and she's doing that. And those comps were not playable. Or Aphelios was barely playable. So like that's what's so frustrating to me about some of the balance changes in the game is like they use data and they use the data to justify like changes, but like they don't actually think about like what's actually happening in the game sometimes. I know they're aware of this, like, but again, this is just me being critical of the shortcomings. Like, it's very frustrating to me whenever I can read patch notes and be like, wow, this is so overbuffed, and these units are actually good, just their comps are not playable, and you're making their comps playable, and then you're buffing the units. So it's just, it's frustrating. But anyways, they're bringing down her healing because of the Taric Soraka combo. Apparently in the data, I haven't looked at the data for this, but that combination was much more powerful than just Taric or Soraka on their own. Makes a lot of sense to me. And the shield duration come down. I don't think the shield duration matters a lot, but I guess it matters on stage 2 and 3. That's why they're bringing it down. But I think on your in-game comp, it really doesn't matter that much. Just the actual his ability to continue to cast is what matters, and they nerf that, so that's great. Think fast. We already kind of talked about this. Yeah, in higher tiers of play, it's really toxic, honestly, especially in imbalanced patches. And then Caretaker's Ally changes to encourage more flexible usage of the augment. You have a higher chance to hit another copy of a 2-cost unit on stage 2. So yeah, you can use it for tempo now, but it's going to be less of a free 3-star. Like you can, because basically what you're using before, like you could push levels and get a free 3-star 3-cost, which is like crazy. Like you're able to like, you don't have the drawbacks of, when you play a reroll build, the drawback is you have like a really good mid-game tempo spike, but then like your end game is going to be a little bit weaker because you had to stay lower level, right? But with Caretaker's Ally on 3-cost, like you could just still continue to push levels because 3-cost units are hittable on level 8s, and so and are very strong. So are there more flexible frontliners and 2-cost buckets? Yeah. Okay, cool. Truly, you mentioned we need to keep this mid-patch small and only target urgent fixes. No, I think this patch was great. So anyway, so just in a recap of this patch change, Yeah, guys, if you really like Bard, play him. I already think he was kind of overrated, except for the silver tier augment, because I don't think his gold and prismatic are that great. I think they're fine. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Caitlyn right now. I think Caitlyn's gold and prismatic are really free tempo, especially in low elo. But I think in high elo it's actually pretty decent. The gold on Stars Are Born went from 3 to 6. It helps you make those early econ thresholds and have a strong board. It's pretty good. I've been playing a lot of Caitlyn, and it's been feeling pretty nice. So maybe give her a try if you guys are wanting to try a legend that was buffed on this patch. But other than that, I'll do a legends tier list soon. We'll let the meta stabilize a little bit. But other than that, you probably play like Poro, Ornn, stuff like that is still really good. So, but anyways, yeah, these are the patch notes. Fantastic changes by the devs, and I'm excited to play some games today. Hope you are too. I love you all, and I love TFT.